You know who made it.
So hello and welcome to the See Me Be Me podcast. Today we are joined by Wayne Bennett, who is the founder and director for Made4Tech Global. Welcome to the podcast, Wayne.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you again, Blair. And again, just a big congratulations on the 10th anniversary of Player Project and what you guys have done in the community. It is amazing. So glad and honoured to be here.
Oh, thank you, Wayne. That means a lot. So just for our audience engaging with us in today's episode, Wayne, could you start off by just telling us a bit about yourself and how you got started with Made4Tech Global?
Okay. Where do I start? Well, first of all, born and raised in Manchester, the oldest of 10 children, 3 brothers and 6 sisters, to a single mother, a lady called Paula English, who was a rock in the Manchester community, and that's from Longside to Rusholme to Moss Side. So kind of grown up in the times when, what you call it, Hacienda and all the gang wars and all that kind of stuff was going on in Manchester. So, people from my neighborhood wasn't necessarily looked like they were going to raise to be, real role models of any stature. And for me, again, I don't want to cut a long story short, I kind of fell into my dream job, which was recruitment, and for a technology recruitment company back in 1995. And I got interviewed by about 5 people. And luckily for me, the individual who ran the company knew about my side, knew that, for you to come in and actually get to put on a suit and come to an interview, what you've had to have overcome. And gave me a chance, put me on the phones. And this time he had like box of cards, and he said, just call those companies. And I came off the phone with a couple of jobs and ended up starting with them, and ended up being with them for 6.5 years doing embedded software engineering recruitment. And I loved it. I could speak to techies. I got it. I was fascinated by it. And I then progressed to another company after that called PSD for about 11 months. Strangely enough, I seen one of the chaps I used to work with there yesterday. I moved from there. I got headhunted from there to work for a company called Hayes. And one of the challenges there, someone said I couldn't do accountancy recruitment. And I was like, don't tell me I can't do it. And ended up being with that division for about 2.5 years. And then I got headhunted from that division to Hayes Marketing, just as things were going from offline to online. And because of my background in technology recruitment, I understood it and got it. So I ended up being with that division for 3 years. And then I got headhunted to go into Hayes IT technology. And the chap who was the MD knew my background was technology. He'd worked with me in Hayes Finance and ended up being with that division for 2.5 years. And I was like, oh my God, I'm back in IT. Why did I leave? I ended up being there for 2.5 years. And then I got headhunted for an opportunity with, I don't know how much of these companies names I'm allowed to say. So I'm just wondering if next one I just say a billion turnover organization, and help them set up a IT recruitment division that was initially about 3 or 4 people. And by the time I finished with them after 9 years, it got up to a team of 28 people and the most profitable team in the UK. And I must also say the most diverse and inclusive. We were completely different from any other team. And then I moved on from there, and I thought at the time was my dream job. I'd always worked in Manchester City Centre for like 25 years. I had a job to go out into Cheshire for a new startup, major shareholder, 2 individuals when I started. And after about 18 months plus, we got to over 10 people, moved from a 2-man office to a 4-man office to a 10-man office to a 20-man office back into City Centre. But the dream was that it was out in the sticks. You know what I mean? I just got into meditation at the time. I just got into breath work. So it was like a dream job for me and everything. And then, it came to a point where I'd worked for all these organizations, helped them build great, amazing teams. And I thought I needed to take a chance on myself. And the only reason I'd not done, and I didn't know at the time, is I was neurodiverse. So I always thought I worked in organized chaos. I thought, how could I take the way I work into starting a business?
Yeah.
And through that organic change, I thought, if I don't take a chance on myself now to start something, I'll never do it. And I did. And I possibly started a recruitment agency in possibly one of the toughest times in recruitment or tech. But I'm still here. The hair's not growing back, but I've still got a smile. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it was going on that discovery of acceptance of, diversity, facing what it takes to start a business, run a business, and the challenges of overcoming fears and your mind self-sabotaging, you know what I mean, and not recognizing your true abilities. Hopefully that is a little...
It's really inspiring that way. I mean, you briefly touched on it at the beginning, but because you mentioned like your background growing up and whatnot, and how there wasn't, you were saying that it was hard to find, let's say, role models in like the community and whatnot. So who gave you essentially that first step to give you that belief that you could pursue a career in recruitment?
So what I'm doing here is trying to be as present as I can as I'm answering it. And I think there was an individual, Benji, they called him. And I just realized, because I only thought about him the other day, actually, because someone asked me who he was. And he used to run a reprographics printing company in Moss Side. And he gave me a job helping him to print. And at them times, you used to have to use actual paints and colors and mix them to do these posters. And it was the first time I thought I was using something where I had to use my brain and my hands to do something. And then from that journey and him giving me that opportunity, considering the other opportunities at the times were other, not legal activities to say the most.
Yeah.
It gave me an inspiration of working and doing something that I was actually proud of to do, that I could say I did that. And from there, I went to college and started to, because I left school with no grades, right? And this is me thinking I was really intelligent. I was great at maths. English, but I didn't come away with anything. So going back into college and learning something, I was like, oh my God, there's somewhere where I can actually learn something and be someone. So I guess the first inspirational person outside of my mother, who I thought was a very strong Black woman in the community, was a gentleman called Benji that made me realize that working and doing something I could create something.
Fantastic. I mean, and then just in terms of where you are now, Wayne, you've had over 25 years of experience in recruitment. Can you share some insights into the changes you've witnessed in the technology industry over the 25 years you've been in the recruitment business?
Okay, I'm gonna do my best to not be too controversial. So let's just say when I first got into recruitment, the passion and love for it made you have. Or let me take it back. I wanted to work in an environment that I seen as almost like, I don't know if you ever watched Boiler Room or Wall Street, right?
Yeah.
When I walked into that recruitment firm and seen the guys in the office, they were like, guys stood up on the phones, 3-piece suits. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be here. I'm going to do whatever it takes to be here. So if it means me being on the phone and calling, I'm going to do it. So that was the inspiration. Now, when I first started, two things I noticed. One, majority of the shortlists you provided for clients were white males or Australians with visas. That was it. I've not heard anyone disagree with me. Secondly, I thought there was a massive shortage of women in tech, of any color. And I actually remember I'd written an article for what's the name? A lady called Dr. Shola Moshabamu, and I might be saying her name incorrectly, but she's very well known on TV now. I met her a few years ago, and she asked me to write an article for her. I think it was back in 2019, and at the time I said I wanted to start a recruitment agency that placed women into tech because there was a massive shortlist, and whenever I found a woman on a shortlist, 9 times out of 10 she got offered the job. But I thought I was too young, I was too innocent, I didn't know any better, and left that idea. So that's one of the biggest changes I've seen. The shortlists are more diverse, more different individuals in it, and that's up to management. Possibly not as much diversity at a senior leadership level, but it's being talked about, it's being challenged. But that's the biggest change I've seen. There's more diversity in the shortlists.
And then as someone who's been involved in, let's say, building diverse teams, what challenges have you faced and how did you overcome them?
Ooh. Now, there's something I think that whether it was from a management point of view, because I've come from a big family, so many different personalities to work with, each one of my siblings completely different, right? So because of that, there wasn't many people that came through the door that I didn't kind of have some understanding with, right? Let's put it this way. There was not anybody I've met in my recruitment life that had any other story that shocked me, that I could give them a story that they'd be like, oh, wow, Waylon, you're still smiling? So from that point of view, I was always amenable to people. I was always, no matter what your background and understanding is, I'm interested in the story. And here's what I see with tech. Tech is consistently always changing.
Yeah.
So sometimes how I used to see it, and maybe this is the neurodiverse at play here, almost the more complex and intricate you are, I almost used to look at it as that, oh, you could work on certain technology. You could definitely understand this. So I used to look, sometimes the more difficulties you've been through, the more easy it would be for you to understand tech and how it works and how it evolves. Yeah, I'd like to say majority of the time that worked on the more diverse or the more different your background is to what we already have.
Yeah.
The more ability you have to understand something. Because I think tech is really simple. We overcomplicate it. My view on this has always been like, once I learned that building a house is very similar to building tech, just different materials. That was it for me. Do you know what I mean? And I always looked at it that way. Anyone I interviewed, I explained it that. I said, what it is getting you to understand that. What drive do you have? What passion do you have? What are you looking to do? And if I could see that, and my other colleagues could see that, we could say, right, how does that person fit in the team? Because I think that's what it is. How do you blend team? What do you add to the team? What can you bring to the team? Can we motivate you to enjoy your role? Because once you love it, once you enjoy it, the money in that comes.
So what strategies have you found effective in connecting with local communities to encourage talent to pursue careers in technology?
What I've seen is organizations sponsoring events in the community that helps the community. So for instance, there's an organization called Manchester Tech Festival.
Yeah.
And the individual who runs that, a lady called Amy Newton, she's very passionate about digital illiteracy, homelessness, mental well-being, and things like that. So she's getting all these organizations to congregate in one place and then goes out into the community to make sure she's got connections. There are organizations that genuinely want to do similar things, but for whatever reason, they've not stepped into the communities where the youth centers are, where the charities are, and understood them, or vice versa. They've tried, but the engagement hasn't worked, or their approach hasn't worked. So I know from working for a local charity, I think the person who ran that charity for a number of years didn't believe in working with private sector or public sector.
Yeah.
And I came in, I want to say on my own, changed that way of thinking and got them engaging in public and private sector. But that damage has been done over years, so it'd take years to potentially get them back in. But I think within one meeting, I got a well-known law firm, a government agency, a couple of private sector, higher education organization, all to sit at the table, at the round table. Now, that same table, I'd had offered 30 plus companies the opportunity to come and sit at that table. And only a couple of them turned up. So this is what I'm saying. Sometimes there's a lot of talk, but I also understand the walk to that journey takes some pulling and doing, you know what I mean? And again, I might not be patient with some people, do you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, you want something to happen? Right, let's do it now. And oh, it's going to take a while.
So it's almost the change is slow, but it's just you're building and building to change like people's perceptions and whatnot.
Yeah. So there's definitely organizations, a lot of organizations that are doing work, but I'm genuinely, I think this is a question I asked the mayor a couple of years ago regards this should be a blueprint that any person from the age of 11 to 16 says, right, I want to be this, in tech. And there's some way of doing it. There's a journey that they could just jump on. And there's organizations that are supporting that along the way that can benefit from the end result of that individual coming out as either a software engineer, a designer or anything, you know what I mean? And the companies are supporting it.
Now, Wayne, following on, just expanding from that question, really. So in terms of changing people's perceptions in terms of like diversity and inclusion, particularly in tech, could you elaborate on the importance of commitment from board level executives in fostering diversity and inclusion within companies?
I genuinely believe if the organizations recognize the ability to adapt, and I heard this possibly where depending on what the end result of that organization's product line, if they're selling a product to a wider community, once they recognize that diversity gives them that diverse thought to actually attract, let's call it what it is, money into the business. If they don't have that, they'll only have that narrow view. There's a story, whether it's true or not, is a famous celebrity was looking for their product line to go out to the community, and that person was of color, and everybody that came up to be a supplier were all of one color. And I feel like, how can you get to my community if nobody that's pitching to me knows my community? And I think it was a McKinsey report. I think I put it on my website. 2020 recognized that those organizations who were diverse and inclusive, their profitability was 30% more than those organizations that weren't. So what does that say? It says, yes, if you've got a really diverse, inclusive culture, you tend to be thinking of how to get out to the market better. You have a better working organization, so the productivity is better because people love to work there. Do you know what I mean? And if they don't love to work there, they leave in droves. You know what I mean? So you miss out on that opportunity. So that, from a board point of view, that should be getting through. But you've got to realize the culture in the UK is particularly different from the US, because I think the US has been on that journey for years now. I think there's even a legal requirement for organizations to be diverse, and I think the public sector have it here. You know what I mean? But it will take some time for it to get on, because I think, again, I'm trying to make sure I'm not too controversial here. How much of it is still a tick boxing exercise in public sector compared to the impact of what it could have? But I think things are getting better. I definitely think since the George Floyd, the open conversation, people are talking, and even if it's talk, it still becomes more open. I think on your previous podcast with Rihanna, I think there was a point you mentioned, and I think it's people just talking about people, whether they want to talk about it or not. It gives people a platform to discuss something, so they're aware. And I think that's what's happening in the UK. People are aware that people are offended. I think that was it. You can have a conversation with someone and not know that something you said is offensive to them. And I know I've been there. I've especially with you can be very passionate and enthusiastic, and you can talk for 10 minutes straight, not realizing you've not given that person an opportunity to talk. Or you say something flippantly, not realizing it's offended somebody. And that's what I've learned. You know what I mean? I've had a couple of conversations with people recently. I thought, oh my God, I didn't realize that when I said that, it affected you that way, because you're still talking about it 3 years later.
And just next question I wanted to ask, Wayne, is regarding the because we've been talking about like, let's say, nurturing, let's say, talent and whatnot, and then it's just also the importance of seeing people around you that have, like, say, a similar background and whatnot, almost like having, let's say, role models. But what I wanted to go into now is that how can, let's say, companies effectively address burnout and stress-related issues, especially in a fast-paced industry like technology?
Ooh, honestly, Blair, I've possibly got too much to say on these subjects. So let's talk real for a second, in a sense that for me, the neurodiversity thing has only been discussed the last 3 or 4 years openly, maybe 4 or 5. If I'm really, I'm giving people the benefit of doubt. I could say from personal experience that some of the things I went through in my career, possibly burnout, definitely once, on the verge twice. And if I didn't realize what had happened to me the first time and see the signs, I wouldn't have been able to take a step back and say, I'm not going to allow you to take me down this path.
Yes. Yeah.
But a lot of that was signs regards me being neurodivergent and me being overwhelmed. And if I'd not found meditation recently and breath work and these things to help me regulate certain things in me, before, if you were classed as stressed, you were put on the side. You know what I mean? You were even fearful to mention the word stress in the work environment. Now, with the neurodiversity, and now people are trying to recognize wellness and well-being and things like that in the workplace. And I think, okay, maybe we are working people too hard. Maybe we need to be a little bit more flexible. The pandemic inadvertently made people go home and realize, wow, I'm working all these hours God sends, and what am I getting back? I'm not, you know what I mean? So in a way, the word woken up is just coming up to saying, what's my life about? You know what I mean? Am I working to live or am I living to work? You know what I mean? Where's the balance? And I understand that. And I think, and I said this when the pandemic started, I said, what you're going to find out when the pandemic finishes is what companies are really about. You know what I mean? Because they're going to be the ones that have to start talking with their employees regards getting a balance of what works, rather than you do this and that's it. And it may work for a certain time, but as soon as someone finds a better culture, a better organization to work for, they're going to go. So why not be that great company now? Why not take that chance to, how can I better work with my employees to get the best out of them, and they possibly overproduce because naturally they want to do the best, but help make it a safe environment for them to work, anybody to be able to work in. There was a great book I listened to. That was another thing for a neurodiverse, Audible. Oh my God, it's a godsend. Not plugging them, but I ended up, when I discovered Audible, being able to take in about 40 to 50 books. For the last 30 years, I possibly did 2 books a year, and they were Jack Reacher books when I went on holiday.
Wayne, in your experience, what role do you feel that government policies can play in encouraging youth to pursue careers in technology, particularly in green technology?
It's just you got to realize we missed the boat about 20 years ago when tech was taking off big time in year 2000, things like that. And other countries invested heavily in training their people in technologies that would potentially be in the future. And it's strange because the round table I went to with Niall last week, I said we possibly got another opportunity, maybe not as big, but another opportunity to focus on that with automation coming in now. That organization's policies should be that if anyone lets anybody go through automation technology being invested in the company, they should be legally obliged to retrain their staff in technologies that are helpful to organizations, especially where the shortfall is in the UK. So if there's shortfall in cyber skills, the first option they should be able to retrain it. If it's shortfall in AI skills or data engineering or software, you know what I mean, all these new technologies, even roles that the company might be lacking, they should be able to put on some form of skills training track that they can potentially rehire that individual, or companies have a chance to rehire those people who have the abilities. You know, we have technology now that can assess people's strengths in certain areas, so train them up in certain skills that can be brought back in. You know what I mean? I have an individual now who's been 30 years in the industry that works for me as a female entrepreneur. Amazing ability and understanding of people and things like that. And I think that's it. We overcomplicate certain things when we could simplify it. But as someone says, what's in it for the big business? Do you know what I mean? Doing something like that, will it hamper them rather than be best for the people?
You know who made it.
Now, what we're going to do is go into our a fun, free bonus questions. So, bonus question number 1. If you could throw a dinner party and you could invite anyone, past or present, it could be people in your personal life or it could be celebrities, who would be those 3 individuals that you would invite to the dinner party?
Ooh. Okay. Now, I'd possibly say I would have loved to have said my mum and my dad, right? They're both passed now, rest in peace, right? My mum, the formidable individuals she was, and I remember my first boss in recruitment meeting her, and him saying, I've never met someone like that. And this chap, when I've been out with him, he could speak several languages.
Yeah.
He's traveled the world. And for him to meet my mother and said, Wayne, I've never met anybody like that. That was a thing. That was a big thing. The second one, again, was my father, who is possibly the most coolest individual I've ever met. He was just loved by people, he most chilled. Now, who would I bring into that mix? And I'm just thinking, I on the past. Now, when I heard a similar question, and I thought, who would you bring in? And there's people that come to your mind like Barack Obama because of his coolness, calmness, and things like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've really stuck with inspiration because I don't know. I take things from everybody. Okay, I'm going to throw one in because he possibly started off on my journey of understanding myself. Was Deepa Chopra. He's into meditation and things like that, the 21 days and things like that. But I listened to his book, Meta Human, and it blew my mind. Wow. Knowing about, the atom and 99.9% of it is actually nothing, which then made me realize, wait, we are actually nothing. We're actually, so that book blew my mind. So how the hell he would be at a dinner table with my mum and dad and him and me, because I think I've so changed. I learned more about my mum in the last 6 months of her life because of the journey I went on to understand myself in possibly all the years before. And honestly, I can't speak enough about my dad. He was so, when I spoke to him, because I met my dad when I was about 18, right? My mum used to say I was what was the word? Immaculate conception, right? And then when I met him, it was like meeting myself, how I would love to be in 20 years' time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was that thing, but he still had a lot of the things that I had fought when in my youth to overcome. He still had a lot of those impulses and things like that. So it was strange. But I'm sorry if I didn't come up with anybody else inspirational, but there's still 2 people today. Every time I go past Southern Cemetery, I knock my head because they're amazing people.
So no, that's no. Again, it's just it's really no. It's been really good getting the insight. To be quite honest, there, Wayne. Yeah, it's been a really great conversation. So just going into second bonus question: if you could choose any superpower at all, what would that superpower be?
Wow. Something that would allow people to understand each other so they can get on better with each other.
Oh, that's interesting.
That to me, I think, is the biggest thing on arguments or challenges or wars or whatever is misunderstanding.
Yes.
And I think people play on that as well. So I think if there was something that I could make 2 people understanding something so they can come to an understanding, we could move forward.
Yeah.
so there's no argument. You know what I mean? Can you imagine a world where everyone in the study should have said, "Oh, right, I understand now." You're okay, right? So let's agree. Okay, now we can move forward.
Be a very nice world to live in. Yeah.
I don't know if that would be a superpower, but it'd be something I would love, because I think that's the journey we're on this to do, is to learn and grow and become better. So, I recognize now a lot of the potential arguments and difficulties I had is because I didn't understand someone's intent in something. There are a lot of people who are neurodiverse who don't tell others they're neurodiverse because the person's lack of understanding.
Yeah.
I know now, through me being open and accepting of my neurodiversity, that people, if they don't see your disability, it's almost like you have no disability. Your Rihanna mentioned it first about your neural cortex not being developed enough, and time management, and knowing the cues when to not say certain things. And sometimes, at one point, I used to thought I had Tourette's, because I couldn't wait for the person to stop talking. I knew where they were going to go with the conversation. I had to say something. The meditation has allowed me to be calm and settle that down. But the misunderstanding of it, the stigma to it, and even some MP, I think it was getting on, I think it was a reporter saying there's no such thing. And like I said, I've got the combined type. So the attention deficit and the hyperactivity. And again, there's times when you want to do something, you can't. And I think, like I said, when I got assessed, luckily I had my wife with me. 30% of the stuff that I was doing, I wasn't consciously aware I was doing.
Wow.
So,
I'm still on that journey. We'll have to get you on for a part 2 podcast as well, Wayne. The last thing that we do with all our guests is that we give you the stage now. So what we'd like to do is just turn it over to the guests. So if people want to follow you on your journey, like what social medias or accounts do you have that people can follow you on? Do you have a website? The floor's now yours, Wayne.
So so my company is Made4Tech Global, of which I'm the CEO. I'm looking to partner with organizations who generally want a recruitment partner who wants to understand them and find the right people. I've got a particular strength about understanding architecture recruitment, technology architecture recruitment, cybersecurity, but I've helped organizations who are on that business change. So looking for interim or permanent staff. And I genuinely look at the best talent that's out there. You know what I mean? If you have the experience and you look right, I'm going to talk to you. And if you're genuinely a company who wants to take on people who are locally or from the community or want to change their organization, I'm happy to have that conversation. But I also realize there's companies that want the transactional as well. So I'm not, I could be Marmite to some and the best thing since sliced bread to others. But no, I think I'm just hoping, I can inspire other individuals who, my background is, again, I came from, Longsight, Russia, Mossad. I came from places where they didn't think you were going to be able to make it. And if that inspires one person to say, I can be what it is, because I think that's it. We possibly don't say to ourselves enough that we can be anything we generally want to be. But yeah, from a company point of view, yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Made4Tech Global, Wayne Bennett. By all means, follow me. And if I can build something that I think I will be proud of and hopefully hire talent to help that build in the future, I would love to be that kind of shining light. So look, Wayne did it. It can be done. You know what I mean? But listen, I'm talking. You guys are already on that path to do it. You know what I mean? I don't want to say envious. I'm just like, oh my God, look what you've done. You know what I mean? I was sat around the tower with Niall last week, and his question regards, getting more funding from the government regards what you're building around green energy and things. I was like, it was so inspirational. I'm like, oh my God, did I ask the right question? Oh my God, could I come up with something? You know what I mean? But to be sat at the table with him is great. You know what I mean? And I'll get off this and I think, oh my God, I could have said so much more. But it's one step at a time is all I can say. You know what I mean? And maybe there's a part two.
Well, thank you, Wayne. But no, definitely we'll have to get you back on the podcast maybe sometime either later in the year or sometime next year for like a part two. So, but yeah, just once again, thank you for appearing on today's podcast, and thank you for everyone listening today. And until next time, take care.
No problem. Brilliant questions.
Thanks, Wayne.
Take care. All right.
care.
See you later.